Hello everyone. In today's tutorial, we will learn how to configure firewall rules and policies. For configuring the firewall rules, we need to have an understanding of firewall objects. So we will try to understand firewall objects one by one and simultaneously we will configure them as per our network design. What are firewall objects? Firewall objects are named collection that represent specific network, services, applications, user groups, or connections when creating firewall rules and policies. You can use the firewall objects that are pre-configured on the Sophos firewall, but you can also create custom firewall objects depending on your requirement. Let's quickly move to the firewall interface and we will understand. So going to the firewall web interface, we will be going to the firewall objects, that is host, service and all. As I told you that you can use the firewall objects that are pre-configured on the Sophos firewall, but you can also create a custom firewall objects. As you can see over here, there are some pre-configured firewall objects like a host, system host for the port A is 10.1.1.200. Then port B has the WAN interface IP 192.168.0.197 and so on. So these are the pre-configured objects which you can use, or else as per your requirement you can create new ones. Firewall objects are reusable, which means that you can use one firewall object in as many rules as required. So let's assume this is one of the firewall configured object port A having the IP address to be 10.1.1.200. This is the one firewall object IP host. This you can use for multiple purpose. I mean the same object you can use for multiple rules. As you can see, there are several dynamic objects such as host, services, then come zones, interfaces and gateways. We will look into it one by one. Administrator can use these objects while creating firewall rules and various policies. Let's start with the IP host. We are into the IP host. When we have logged in into the appliance, from the left pane over here under systems, we have clicked on host and services and we landed into IP host. So what is IP host? The IP host page over here in the Sophos XG firewall displays the list of all the dynamic hosts, default hosts, and manually added hosts. Like if you will see over here, there are some default hosts and there are some dynamic hosts. So host allows the entities to be defined once, which can be reused, as I said you earlier, which we can use this host in multiple instances during configuration of our firewall policies. So let's add one by one. So as you are aware that this is our network design, what we are going to do is uh, trying to add the host. What we will do, we will be adding the IP host for this workstation whose IP address we have assumed to be 10.1.1.150 and this another host 10.1.1.100. These two hosts we will be adding for now. Let's go to the firewall GUI. We will say, we will give the name lab PC1 and we will be saying that 10.1.1.50. Am I right? Yes, 10.1.1.150. This is our host 1 and we will save it. Then we will add our another host, that is 10.1.1.100. Let's click on add. We'll give the host name as lab PC2. I would like to add one more thing. There are two options: IP version 4, IP version 6. We are using IPv4, so we will opt for IPv4. Then over here it is giving you option IP network, IP range, IP list. So while creating an IP host, either you can create using an IP single IP, or you can define a network with the subnet mask, or even you can define an IP range that from so and so IP like 10.1.1.10 to 10.1.1.20. I need the IP range to be defined, or IP list. Simply you can give the IP address by comma, using comma, 10.1.1.10 comma 10.1.1.20 and so on. Now for now we will be creating an IP host with a single IP, and we will say IP address is 10.1.1.100. Okay, and simply I will save it. So over here we have created an IP host with the name lab pc1 and IP address 10.1.1.150, and another host we have created name lab pc2 and IP address is 10.1.1.100. The next comes IP host group. The IP host group page over here displays the list of all the host group. As you can see, right now there is no IP host group. So host group is a grouping of host. Security policies can be created for the individual host or host group. See, when you come to the security policy part, you will see the source and the source and destination. The source, when you will defining, you will be defining either IP host, a single IP, or a network, or a range of IP addresses or IP list. When we will move on to the rules and policies, at that time we will see how we use this host in rules and policies. For now, just understand single terminology. What is IP host? Once you are perfect in objects, in defining the objects, then the firewall policy, defining the firewall policy will be like a just a single shot. Like within a single shot you will be able to define the firewall policies. So we have created IP host. As I told you, that IP host group. IP host group, what you have to do is you will add, you will give the name like lab PC. As the name suggests, group, it means it is a group of IP host. Description, if you want to give, you can give the description, it is optional. IP version is 4. Select host. So over here in the search box you will say lab PC1 and you will add PC and you will apply to selected items and save it. Guys, when you are configuring security policies, it can be created for an individual host or a host group. The page over here allows you to add a new host group, or even you can, as we have added, you can update it. Like for example, let's say tomorrow you have some other PC which you need to join. Let's say for example you need to add one more thing in the IP host group, that is the Active Directory. So there are two ways. Either you will create a host over here. Let's say you will say AD server, Active Directory server. The IP address is 10.1.1.50. You will give the IP address 10.1.1.50, and you can define the IP host group from here. Apply once selected, and you can save it. Okay, or else what you can do, simply save it. Go to IP host group. Over here, add new item, and you can just find it from here, AD server. Apply once selected and save it. So now when you go to IP host, it will show you that that particular IP host is a group of lab PC. Let's go to IP host, open this AD server, and you will see that it is a, this IP host is a member of IP host group lab PC. So this was all about IP host and IP host group. Let's move to the MAC host. Device allows you to assign a host name to one or more MAC address, similar to what we did in IP host. Over here you can add a machine with a name like, let's say, lab PC1, and you can provide the MAC address. Additionally, if you want to add a multiple MAC addresses, like let's say for all the lab PCs, you will say a lab PCs, and you can just check MAC list and you can define the MAC addresses. You can enter the list of MAC addresses using comma and save it. So you can do a, you can create a policy even using the MAC host, MAC addresses. Next come FQDN host. FQDN stands for fully qualified domain name. The FQDN host page displays the list of all the available FQDN hosts. Fully qualified domain name host allow entities to be defined once and be reused in multiple referential instances through the configuration. It allows you to add the domain over here, and this domain, as you have seen that the IP host group, whichever you are defining, you can use that in multiple policies. Similarly, you can define a domain name over here, and you can use that particular domain, let's say www.example.com, that you can use in multiple places. Let's add one and see. We will add it. Enter FQDN domain name. So we will say, like, for example, it is Google. Okay. And the FQDN fully qualified domain name is www.google.com, and you will simply save it. You will find it over here. You will filter it, and you can see the one which you have created is Google, and the FQDN is www.google.com. Additionally, you can see that it has resolved the IP address of the Google, which is 216. Simply you have to take the cursor over here, and you will find the IP address, which is 216.239.38.120. Let's add one more, or else we can simply move to FQDN host. Similarly to IP host, you can create a policy using FQDN host. Moving to FQDN host group, you can make a group. Let's say, for example, you will make a group with name lab group. Okay. And over here, you need to select a host. So there are pre-configured host or a dynamic host, you can say, which is being there available. You can select all of those. Guys, in this way, you can select multiple FQDN hosts which are pre-configured. And additionally, the one which you have configured, you can search over here. It was Google, the name which you have given. Even google.com was pre-configured. We have also configured just for learning purpose. You can simply apply for, and you can save it. So you have, in this way, you can create a FQDN host group. Country group. Sophos XG Firewall. In the Sophos XG Firewall, the devices offers predefined country group based on their continent. It also offers a list of countries which appear when you create a firewall rule. You can create custom country groups. Like the way when we will be going to rules and policies, over there you will be using all these objects to configure a firewall rule. So you can define the source as your IP host or a IP host group, or a MAC host, or a FQDN host, even FQDN host group, or even you can create a policy based on the country locations. Moving on, the another object is services. There are several services with the standard ports already configured. The service page displays the list of all the default and custom services. Services are definition of certain type of network traffic and combine information about a protocol such as TCP, ICMP, or UDP, as well as protocol related options such as port numbers. You can use services to determine the types of traffic to be allowed or denied by the firewall. Certain well-known traffic types have been predefined in services, as you can see over here on the screen. Predefined services are defaults and cannot be updated or deleted. If you require any service definition that are different from the predefined services, you can add them as custom services. Let's say, for example, these all are the services which are pre-configured, but I need to add a service as per my requirement. I need to add a service port number 8443. So over here, what I will say, I can give a name. You can give any name. I will be saying service port 8443. It will be TCP or UDP. Destination port 8443. If I want UDP also, I will say 8443, and I will simply save it. So you have defined this service port, but additionally there are multiple ports which are being available by default. SMTP 465, it is by default. So additionally, I want to add, like, let's say, sorry, going to service port number 7001. I will say service port 7001. I will give the port number 7001. I will simply save it. Either of the way, if you are selecting TCP UDP, you can say it's 7001 or you can define it 7001. Service group is similar to the IP host group and FQDN host group. If you want to group a particular port numbers into one and apply this instead of using one by one services, like let's say when you will move to the rules and policies, I will show you over there. You can define multiple services within a one rule. So when this object you want to, either you want to select these objects one by one or you want to group these objects and use it as a single shot, you can do that. So now these were the objects which we will be using in rules and policies. IP host or a group of IP host, MAC host or a FQDN host or a group of FQDN host. You can define the rules and policies using country group, services or a service group. There are some other objects as well which are interfaces. Going to network, this is a interface. Interfaces list are all the interfaces of the devices along with their configuration. If you would see, when we have just started with the configuration, the very first step what we did in the firewall was we have changed the default IP to the IP address of port A as per our requirement, as per our network design. The IP address which we configured was 10.1.1.200. So you can see there were already a pre-configured port numbers. Port A was pre-configured with some IP address. Even the port B you can see is configured. Now we have bridged that port, so it has taken a IP address from the physical host, or else earlier it was some different IP. So the device is shipped with a number of physical interfaces, that its port and a number of virtual instances. Depending on the model of the devices, the port numbers may differ. The interface page displays a list of physical interfaces, as you can see, port A, port B, port C, and so on. Alliances, virtual interfaces, and bridge. If you will see over here, these are the physical interfaces. Apart from that, you can add a bridge, add alliance, add a VLAN, or add lag, and add RED. These options are available. Virtual interfaces you can define. So port A was already configured to a CLI when we initially rebooted our appliance, and we have given a static IP. We have defined the network zone as LAN and so on. Let's change this IP address as well, which is port B. The IP address should be 192.168.0.200. Let's change this IP also as per our network design. Port B, the network zone is WAN. Instead of DSCP, you will say static and you will give the IP address as 192.168.0.200. Subnet mask will remain /24. Gateway name, you will give anything, whatever you want. I will say lab gateway. Gateway IP will be my router IP address, that is 192.168.0.1, and I will save the configuration. It is saying me updating the interface may interrupt the following. There is a possibility that you may lose connection and so on. So I am very much specific, I am sure. So I will simply update the interface. You have to be very careful when you are updating the interface. So you can see the interface configuration for port B is updated, and now we have a static IP address as per our network design, that is 192.168.0.200. Moving on to the zones. So this page displays a list of all the zones including system zones and lets you manage the zones. A zone is a logical grouping of ports or a physical interfaces or a virtual sub interfaces if defined. Zones provide a flexible layer of security for the firewall. With the zone-based security, the administrator can group similar ports and apply the same policies to them instead of writing the same policy for each interface. Next to the name of the zone type, the list displays the members belonging to the specific zone. Over here, if you will see, this is the name of the zone, which is LAN. Next to that is a member. So the pre-configured zone LAN, the member of this particular zone is port A. Let's see how we can create a zones. By default, you can see port A is a member of zone LAN. LAN has a member port A. Port B is a member of zone WAN. At present, DMZ has no zone, no member, and so on. If you want to add the zone, you can do it by writing the add zone name. We will say LAN. Already we have LAN. For example, you have two LANs, and you want to differentiate that. You want to make that particular LAN in a different zone. In that case, what you will do, you will say, for example, LAN 2. Description is optional. Type is LAN or DMZ. You will type LAN. Device access on this particular what accesses you need to open. Let's say we will say HTTPS and SSH. Authentication services. We don't, as if now we will not open anything. Network services, we will say DNS, and we will save the configuration. So just let me come over here again to the default zones. Depending on the devices in use and the network design, you can group 1 to 6 physical ports in the zone. In this LAN zone itself, you can just make 1 to 6 port numbers in as a member of this zone, and it depends upon the model of the firewall as well. By default, the traffic to and from this zone is blocked. Like, let's say for example, you have a zone LAN, and within this you have two members, okay, port A and port B. So by default, the traffic between port A and port B will be blocked. However, the traffic between the ports belonging to same zone with different network will be allowed if the policy is applied for LAN to LAN. Now let's say for example, you have a LAN port, okay, and in it LAN you have port A as a member, okay. This is port A. Now going to the interface part, let's say for example, make port C as a member of LAN zone and give it some dummy IP 1.1.1.1/94. Save it. Update the interface. So the interface is updated now with the IP address 1.1.1.1 to 55.255.255.0, and you have said this particular interface is a member of zone LAN. Coming over here now, LAN zone has two members, port A and port C. So by default, port A and port C won't communicate to each other. By default, it is blocked. The communication between both of the port will be blocked, although they belong to same zone. But you can allow it by applying a policy LAN to LAN and giving the source and destination accordingly. The DMZ, demilitarized zone. This zone is normally used for publicly accessible servers. Depending on the device in use and the network design, you can group multiple physical ports in this zone. The next come WAN zone. This zone is used for internet services. It can be also referred to as an internet zone. The next comes VPN. This zone is used for simplifying secure remote connectivity. It is the only zone that does not have an assigned physical port or interface. Whenever the VPN connection is established, the port or interface used by the connection is automatically added to this zone. And on disconnection, the port is automatically removed from the zone. Like all other default zones, scanning and access policies can be applied on the traffic for this zone as well. The last comes the Wi-Fi. This zone is used for wireless internet services. The device is shipped with single zone for LAN, WAN, DMZ, VPN, and Wi-Fi. Additionally, you can define LAN and DMZ zone types. As we have seen over here, we have created one zone with the name LAN 2, and it was asking us for whether you want this zone type to be LAN or DMZ. So, so guys, till now, whatever we have seen were the objects which will be useful to us when we will be creating a firewall rules and policies. So starting from the IP host, we have seen there are several objects: IP host group, MAC, FQDN host group, country, services group, interfaces, and zones. Now moving on to the rules and policies. Over here, for creating our firewall rules and policies, we will be going under protect rules and policies. You will see over here there are configured rules and policies. So let me tell you in short about the firewall rules and policies. Firewall rules and policies are used to define access rights and protection to the network objects or a host. In a nutshell, if you want to control traffic by source, service, destination zone, then use a firewall rule. Let me just show you. You will say new firewall rule. So over here you will be giving a rule name, description is optional, rule position, action whether you want to accept or you are creating a rule to drop, reject, protect with web server protection, a rule group whether you want to add this group automatic or you don't want any kind of group, or you want a group to be traffic to internal zone, traffic to WAN, traffic to DMZ. Let me tell you what is automatic. Like let's say for example, coming over here in the rules and policies, you will see there are some pre-configured groups. It is saying traffic to internal zone, to LAN, Wi-Fi, VPN, DMZ. So if you create any rule stating that the destination is LAN, Wi-Fi, VPN, DMZ, automatically the rule, if you select the option as automatic, the rule will be grouped under this group, traffic to internal zone. Another one is traffic to WAN. If you are creating any rule from LAN to WAN, from DMZ to WAN, from Wi-Fi or from VPN to WAN, anything going outside the outbound traffic, it will, and if you are selecting a group as automatic, that particular rule will be grouped under traffic to WAN. Third one group is traffic to DMZ. This rule says that if you are configuring any rule that is pointing to DMZ, then that particular rule will be grouped under traffic to DMZ. So configured groups are from outside to inside. Second is from traffic to WAN, means inside to outside, and the traffic to DMZ from anywhere to DMZ. And there is one automatic auto edit firewall rule, which is any zone to any host, any zone to any host. The ports are SMTP, SMTPS with a filtering of antivirus and linked NAT is available over here, and this is a configured rule. So any host with any zone, within any zone, as a source with any zone, any host in the destination, for the port number SMTP, SMTPS, traffic is open. And the last is drop all. If the rule doesn't, the traffic doesn't matches to any of the above rule, it will be hit over here in the drop all and it will be denied. Again, coming to the adding of the firewall rule, network rule. Additionally, you will see over here the administrator as the option to attach user identity. Before that, we will say source. Okay, if you have given a rule name, for example, we'll say lab rule. I will say the rule position be on the top. I will first of all we will check automatic as the rule group as automatic. Source zone I will give LAN. Removing any, I will give any of the one PC lab PC one. I will select this schedule. I will keep all the time. Destination zone will be WAN because I need to open an internet access from LAN for this PC. So the rule will be LAN to WAN. Destination I will keep for now any. Service I will keep for now any. And then this all I will keep default, web filtering and all. Link NAT rule, creating a link NAT rule. The thing is that if you want to reach over the internet, you have to create a NAT rule. Sophos firewall give you an option to link the NAT rule from the policy itself. What you have to do is everything you will be keeping same as it is. Let me explain you about this rule as well. The name it has taken from your policy, that is lab rule. Original source it is saying any. Original destination is any. Original services will be any. The SNAT option over here, what you have to do is you will be selecting MASQ. Simply you will apply maximum time of time when you are doing a configuration. You will be doing this mistake and finally you will result that the internet is not working. So this is what you have to do. You have to link it and simply the natting option over there you have to select MASQ. Application filter, everything you will keep as it is and you will save it. So the policy is created. You have selected an option that you want this rule to be on the top, but nowhere you can see the rule because in the group you have selected automatic. So you have to remember that you have created this rule for from LAN to WAN. So this rule you will find it in under traffic to WAN. What you have to do is you have to just click on this plus and you will see this rule. Let's go to this rule again, and over here rule group, you say you don't want to add this rule in any group and simply save it. Now you can see that the rule is created with the name lab rule and it is not in any of the groups because you have opted for none in the group. Again, going over here, you will see one more thing, that is match known users. So guys, let me check once again. Yeah, over here match known users, you can create a group. As an administrator you have an option to attach a user identity to a rule in order to customize access of assorted host or a server. Using this you can provide access through a user based identity. This we will be looking when we will be doing an integration with the Active Directory, or even we will be creating a local users to provide an internet access. This was all about the firewall objects, which will be helpful for you to create a firewall rules. In the next lecture, which will be purely a lab practice, over there we will be configuring our rules and policies. Now in this lecture, we have made a foundation of the objects, which will be very much useful. So in the next lecture, when directly we will be doing a labs, so you will have an idea what is a host, what is a host group, and what is a service group. Service is FQDN host. What are the concept of zones, what is interfaces. So straight away we can move to the lab and you will be enjoying the session. Apart from that, we this is our topology, this is our network design. So what additionally we will be doing is, before proceeding to the firewall rules and policies, as we have assigned this VMnet 1 to the port A of the Sophos firewall, the same VM network 1 we will be assigning to the network adapters of both these PCs. So this was all about the firewall object, guys. Thanks for watching. And if you like my video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and share with your friends. Thank you once again and see you in the next video.